Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As usual, that was expected from the government side. They meandered, they wondered, they lied, and they saw this opportunity in this motion, Mr. Speaker, to actually brag about things that they have done before. They actually, Mr. Speaker, misunderstood the motion completely. And I was quite surprised that they did not object to this motion in the Business Committee, and I tell you why. They saw an opportunity, Mr. Speaker. They saw an opportunity in this motion to brag about what government has done since 2014. They saw an opportunity to actually lie, and Honorable Attorney General just said that, we're trying to play politics. They've done exactly the same thing. They've fallen into the trap, Mr. Speaker. I was expecting them to look at this motion and understand that this motion was to look at what has happened since the COVID-19 pandemic hit us and build on, Mr. Speaker, from the report that we had. But no, they forgot about it. They misinterpreted and they went on and on and on. And Honorable Minister for Education, she actually told a naked lie in Parliament. She should apologize. I remember, Mr. Speaker, when I spoke on the budget, I said this very clearly, Mr. Speaker. It's recorded in Hansard that I support this budget for 3 reasons. And that was that we were reducing VAT on basic food items and other essentials, that we were removing the tax on fuel, and we were raising the minimum wages, which has been a National Federation Party policy for a while. And Mr. Speaker, they didn't acknowledge the fact that they actually copied the list of items in the same order. So instead of saying, hey, look, this is what you were saying. And Mr. Speaker, it doesn't stop here. Let me just get back to what they were saying, that we are using this as a political tool, that we are making a political game, that we are not honest. In 2014, Mr. Speaker, they actually had it in their manifesto. They promised the people of this country that they will not remove VAT from those basic food items. It was in their manifesto. And they went into the election on that manifesto. They lied. They ridiculed the VAT reduction that I was proposing. They ridiculed with the business cabal the idea of raising the minimum wages. And then they come back and say that, we are playing politics. The Honorable Minister for Social Welfare, as I said, she tries very hard, Mr. Speaker, and I want to acknowledge, and she's actually quite responsive. I'm not patronizing. This is the problem with you. I'm actually telling the truth that she responds. But I've heard her before. She talks about how poor we were. Mr. Speaker, the lies they continue to tell. I come from a farming background. I went to a primary school in Monindebu. We had remission of fees. I got remission of fees right up to Lambasa College, and that was during the reign of the Ratumara government and the reign of the NFP in opposition. And we got scholarships. Thousands of students of all ethnic groups in this country since independence have got scholarships, got loans, got their degrees, they're studying. Of course, government improved it. More students are getting loans now, they have to pay. There is, and we acknowledge that. But to keep bragging about the fact that suddenly, the sun started shining on the education system in this country since the Bainimarama government. I mean, this level of exaggeration, Mr. Speaker, is just unbelievable. They don't have the honesty. They don't have any kind of integrity to be at least honest. They talk about intellectual honesty. The intellectual dishonesty that comes from the other side is breathtaking, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the coming back to the poverty report, and Mr. Speaker, what the people in this country are listening to the debate on this motion from the other side. There are people out there, I mean, they're talking about things that they started doing before COVID. What we are saying, Mr. Speaker, and they're questioning about how we're saying there are 50% of the people. If you look at the report, if they read it correctly, I mean, I know they condemned this report, and I was quite surprised that the Honorable Attorney General was now saying that there's some good things in that report. I mean, there was a minister who didn't even understand the difference between a survey and a census, trying to condemn the report. But let me just go back to the report. The report says, you know who is. The report says, Mr. Speaker, that poverty rate is about 29.9%, 30%. But the report also said that about 15 to 20% of the people are vulnerable on the margins of the poverty line, Mr. Speaker. And after COVID, we all know that about 150,000 people lost jobs, lost income. Some of them are getting it back again, but a large majority are still unemployed. And when we hear stories, the rationale behind this motion, Mr. Speaker, was to give the standing committee, in which they have 3 members, they have their chair, to look at what's happening right now. You can talk about these reports, these assessments, and they're quoting, I mean, on the buffoonery that came from that side, about this whole issue of poverty, Mr. Speaker. I'm actually, quite amazed at the level of stupidity that came, with respect to this motion. Because what the idea of the motion, Mr. Speaker, was, and we, of course, we know the causes of poverty, World Bank report. I mean, Honorable Inia Seruratu was quoting the 2017 report. We understand that, but the objective of the motion, Mr. Speaker, was to look at what has happened since COVID. Where are the people? What is happening? That's what the motion was, and I explained to them. I said that right at the beginning. So, Mr. Speaker, they don't want to talk about the people who are struggling to put food on the table. Before the report, Mr. Speaker, let me tell them this. Before COVID pandemic, 2% of the children in this country were deprived of 3 meals a day. Imagine what would happen after the coup. It talks about size of the family. 40% of those living in poverty have 7 or more in the family. Mr. Speaker, the report provides this useful barometer, and what I was saying that this committee should do, Mr. Speaker, is to go around the country, talk to various stakeholders. There are hundreds of people, and Honorable Lenora Geregaren Tambua gave this example. I went to Narere the other day, this little group, because they know they are living in the community, they understand people are struggling to put food on the table, kids are struggling to have 3 meals a day, and these people organize themselves, Mr. Speaker, to help them. And the reason why we brought this motion is because we have been told this, we saw this. They know this as well. They go, people are usually, when these ministers go, people are kind of afraid, they don't want to raise this issue. But But they also call them because they come and tell us that we have called this minister, they know this. But yet, Mr. Speaker, for political expediency, for political purposes, they come here and brag about the fact that, we've done this. Instead of saying, hey, this is a good motion, all they had to say, Mr. Speaker, the debate would have ended. And you, Mr. Speaker, have said, we wanted a select committee. But the ruling was that standing committees, the Honorable Koya didn't even know that motion was about getting the Standing Committee on Social Affairs to do the inquiry, not a select committee. So it was a very simple motion, a very useful motion, because people out there are suffering, Mr. Speaker. And government doesn't have all the information. They don't have all the information. It's like when people were in the evacuation centers, Minister Seruratu said, they have to wait for 48 hours. There are people starving there. And if it was not for the NGOs, they would have, people don't have food. You're talking about a policy? This is the kind of response they get. And what they say, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Koya, I think, said, in the previous parliament, and he said, people are not suffering. And that kind of mentality of not being able to see and not being able to or want to understand that they need to find more information. Because as I said this morning, Mr. Speaker, the trust in this government is declining, and Honorable Bala was saying, this motion might backfire on you because, and that's what they did. They thought, this is a great opportunity. Let's all come, let's get the ministers and brag about, what they did from 2014. We have acknowledged some of the good things that government has done. Nobody is saying that, they haven't done anything. Every government, Mr. Speaker, every government, whatever size, shape or form, has done something. They've built roads, they've built hospitals, they've provided education. They don't acknowledge that. But on a motion like this, they come and brag about it, instead of focusing on the real issues. Mr. Speaker, they are, when they talk about the tax threshold, that was, before the 2018 election, and they said, no, anybody who's earning 30,000 doesn't pay tax. They actually pay tax. There are indirect forms of taxes. They pay VAT, they pay duty. Yeah. So everything that this government provides to the people of this country, Mr. Speaker, is paid for by the people of this country. When you provide services, when you give social pension, people are paying for it. When you take, let's not come out here and pretend and add, salt to injury to the poor, saying, we are doing this. We are doing this. To say the government is doing it, that's the government's responsibility, and that people are paying for it. I'm talking on the motion. You meandered all over the place here. You are so obsessed with papi. I'll tell you what it means, in a minute. But Mr. Speaker, that is the motion, because the motion, again, Mr. Speaker, again and again I want to remind them, they completely miss the point. They're so obsessed that they completely missed the point because they wanted to play politics. They're not worried. I mean, they talked about sugarcane levy, Growers Council. I know why they did that. They talk about, Honorable Wangani Bete was talking about roads being built and, medical services. Yes, that may be true. But you go and look at all the medical centers around the country right now. I mean, I went to Ducati and I went inside the health center, Mr. Speaker, I remember in the 1970s when you go there, you see all these white stones, the walls are painted, the shade where people are, it was something to go. You can smell the cleanliness and see the flowers. You go to that health center now, the doctor was sitting in the room where the tiles were broken, where the dust was flowing, the nurses were, that's the kind of, you can build roads, but you need to provide the facilities as well. And he's talked about, and this is about poverty. This is about a certain category of people in certain areas, who are suffering. And that is why we are saying after COVID, the situation is dire. Let's have this assessment. Let's have this assessment. And Mr. Speaker, they talk about, it's going to be very expensive. There are ministers who drink grog and the driver is, waiting for them, paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And you want to say that, having a standing committee going around the country for 2 weeks is going to be very expensive? Is that the kind of logic that they're talking about? Wastage of Parliament's time? I mean, that is the kind of logic, Mr. Speaker, that they use to reject this motion, when we need to find out that information. Mr. Speaker, it's just so much exaggeration, that is coming out from the government side. It's just unbelievable, Mr. Speaker. They talk about the policies. They talk about, in fact, Mr. Speaker, for a while I thought we were debating the last budget, because all they were talking about is the budget allocation. Sometimes, Mr. Speaker, just having budgetary allocations, and we know that having budgetary allocations does not mean, Mr. Speaker, that the people are actually getting the services. There are hundreds or thousands of people out there, when they hear ministers talk about in Parliament, they said, this is very good. But after a while, when they find out that it is not reaching them, it's the accessibility, it's the ability of the ministry to spend the money, to get to the people, to help them. And that's what we are saying, that this inquiry, this standing committee would have been able to find out some of the bottlenecks. They would have listened to the people. When we talk about the NGOs, they have this obsession. This is a problem with this government. They have this obsession. They have this obsession with NGOs because they are doing their work. They are doing their work, Mr. Speaker. They attack people who are doing the work. And the motion was that this standing committee would be able to talk to them, Mr. Speaker. And I know the Honourable Attorney General, Mr. Speaker, meanders in different directions, and obviously he's now found a new word, papi, and but let me tell him. And in fact, in the last budget, he said, I've joined the papi. Papi, Mr. Speaker, and he explained himself, means a sinner. He said that. He said that in the last, he said, it was a Freudian slip. But no, he said it 3 times. And then he said, Biman has joined the papi. Mr. Speaker, let me tell the Honourable Attorney General, we are in a Ram Navami celebration. We are in the month of Ramadan. We are in the month of Lent. This is a very holy, auspicious time. And for him to call somebody a papi, a sinner, and for him to say that I've joined the papi, that I somehow, Mr. Speaker, have committed a sin. But the biggest sin, the pap, the guna, that they have committed on the people of this country is by not supporting a very simple motion to find out what's going on with the people. The ruin, the path, the sin that they are committing in not, and they're not doing that. They're trying to create this. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it's quite insulting for the Attorney General, Honorable Attorney General, to talk about it. I mean, it's like a little kid misbehaving, you know, and saying this. And I want to say to him, this is my advice. Act your age, not your shoe size. Because for you to ridicule a political party, leaders of political party, to say that we are somehow sinners, Mr. Speaker. You know, I don't go around, I don't stoop that low. I don't go around saying that, oh, you know, they are papi, they did this, you know. I mean, Mr. Speaker, I would never. You should tell your de facto leader not to do that, Prime Minister. I would never stoop that low, Mr. Speaker. I've never. I will never do this in Parliament. I will never do this outside. And here is a man who's accused a whole political party with thousands of members in that political party, accusing them as sinners. And those who want to cooperate, work together, are also sinners. Because their record, Mr. Speaker, is one of dictatorship. And they want to continue like that. Don't say shut up, Prime Minister. Don't say shut up. Mr. Speaker, you are not the Speaker. You are not the Speaker.
Order.
You are the Prime Minister. You have that respect, but don't say shut up.
Order.
That's unbecoming of a Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
I will never say that to the Prime Minister because I respect the position.
Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.